City's daily COVID cases exceed 9,000, and no further relaxation of social distancing measures for now. Mainland infection cases surpassed 30,000, the highest since April. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The city's latest daily COVID case count topped 9,000 again after more than 2.5 months, with 9,219 cases reported today. 13 more COVID patients succumbed to the coronavirus. With an upsurge of cases, authorities said it's not yet the right time to further ease social distancing measures. Jackie Lin reports.
The city's COVID caseloads crept closer to the 10,000 mark, with 8,500 newly reported local infections and more than 700 imported ones. 19 more care homes and 679 more schools reported new infections. Among the latest local diagnoses, 5 carry the XBB mutant strain, while 3 other cases are detected to have either the BQ1.1 or BF7 variants. Authorities say over the past week, the average daily tally of local infections reached 7,300. That marks a 25% upswing compared with a week before. Imported infections rose 21%, but the proportion of COVID-positive cases among inbound travelers is less than 4%. COVID-related mortality cases grew 15%.
If the situation turned very, very bad, like, the whole medical system is collapsed, at that juncture, of course, we need to tighten the social distancing measures. Yet, this is the last things we would like to do. So that's why we would like to withhold the relaxation at the current moment, status quo, and then we will observe the situation to see what the trend of the infection.
Also, an update on the bivalent vaccine, which targets the Omicron variant. Poised to arrive in Hong Kong over the coming few days, the vaccine will be available for inoculation in early December at the soonest. Meanwhile, a fresh call to more shingles vaccination for those about 50 years old or with weaker immunity from government pandemic advisor Dr. Ivan Hung. He warns the risk of developing shingles soars after contracting COVID. Also known as herpes zoster, shingles is an illness characterized by a painful rash. Those who had chickenpox before are prone to having shingles when immunity weakens. Citing research from the U.S., Hung said 1.8% of some 900 COVID patients in the study developed shingles. That's 5 times higher than the proportion at regular hospitals, and more than half of the patients developed shingles within a week after coming down with the coronavirus.
Because lingering symptoms of pain, itching sensation, and numbness could persist months after the rashes are healed, Dr. Hong urged those past the age of 50 to receive shingles inoculation and maintain a healthy lifestyle in a bid to lower the risk of triggering the skin ailment. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
On the mainland, locally acquired COVID cases surpassed the 30,000 mark today. That's the highest tally since April this year. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Beijing logged 1,648 new COVID infections today. An 87-year-old woman in the capital who suffered from chronic illness died from the virus. Her passing took the mainland's COVID death tally this week to 6. In Beijing's virus-hit Chaoyang district, authorities asked residents to remain in the neighborhood unless there's an emergency. Some Beijing residents thought it's time to adjust the infection control measures. Some residents complained that having to stay at home all day is depriving them of living a proper life. Some said as the current coronavirus strain is not so fatal, it might be time to re-evaluate the situation and adjust the infection control policies. Meanwhile, Guangdong province logged 9,296 new infections. High-risk areas of Guangdong province stopped the sale of antivirus and fever-combating drugs. 95% of COVID cases in Guangdong province have been reported in the provincial capital Guangzhou city, where over 10,000 people have been infected since October 22nd.
Following the national anthem blunder at the Asian Rugby Sevens final in South Korea earlier this month, the Hong Kong Sports Federation and Olympic Committee held a meeting with 82 affiliated sports associations today. The body's honorary Secretary General, Ronnie Wong, said the meeting was constructive in clarifying questions over the new guidelines issued on Tuesday. The new rules state that athletes or sports teams should flag mistakes involving the national anthem immediately at the competitions. They should also leave the competition venue if the blunder is not rectified. Wong said the arrangement would protect athletes' long-term interests in case of penalties and the removal of government subsidies. The head of the Hong Kong Rugby Union, Robbie McRobbie, said the new rules were reasonable and won't add to the pressure faced by athletes. The Court of Final Appeal will rule tomorrow over the Justice Department's latest bid to bar a senior British lawyer from representing Next Digital's Jimmy Lai at his national security trial. A Basic Law Committee member said Beijing may have the final say in the ruling. Jackie Lin reports.
In the high-profile national security trial of Jimmy Lai, the former media mogul wants to be represented by Timothy Owen, a King's Counsel from the UK. That's on 4 charges including collusion with foreign forces and conspiracy to print and sell seditious publications. The city's Department of Justice made repeated objections at numerous courts over Owen's involvement in Lai's case, including the Court of Final Appeal. Lawmaker Priscilla Leung, who also serves as a Basic Law Committee member, said she's not commenting on specific cases, but in general, national security laws around the world exist to protect the interests of a sovereign country. She said it was inappropriate for national security trials to allow the involvement of overseas lawyers or judges due to the conflict of interest, as there could be political pressure from their home countries. So, what will happen if Hong Kong's top court eventually allows a British barrister to represent Lai? Priscilla Leung said she's not making any predictions at this stage, but the ultimate right of interpretation is vested with the National People's Congress Standing Committee, as stipulated in Article 65 of the National Security Laws. She's not ruling out Beijing stepping in if Hong Kong finds the law not clear enough. Senior counsel Ronnie Tong, meanwhile, said none of the articles in the national security laws have limited the choice of legal representation by defendants. He said it's after all the defendant's rights to pick his or her lawyer and is enough protection for national security when the trials are heard only by designated judges. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Hong Kong taxi services may increase the flagfall price by $6 following the Star Ferry and bus companies' recent applications to raise fares. Due to the surge of global fuel prices and other costs, the city's taxi industry plans to apply to get the flagfall raised next year or in the following 2 years. Chow Kwok Kung, the chairman of the Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, said he will meet with the Transport Department tomorrow and submit the application. If the application gets approved, the minimum fare for urban taxis will be $33, $29.50 for New Territories cabs, and $28 for Lantau taxis. In the Netherlands, the Dutch foreign trade minister told lawmakers that the country will make its own decision regarding sales of chip gear to China. This as the U.S. is attempting to cut China off from advanced semiconductor technology. The Netherlands is home to ASML Holding, which dominates the market for cutting-edge chip-making equipment. The company has become a focus of the U.S. government's attempts to limit China of this technology. Dutch Foreign Trade Minister Lisa Schrijnmacher said, "It is important to defend our own interests, our national safety, but also our economic interests." And coming up after the break, Walmart manager shoots and kills before taking his own life. Britain's parliament has final say on Scottish independence. Welcome back. With Russian attacks causing blackouts across Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged the United Nations Security Council to take action against Moscow over strikes on civilian infrastructure. Russian missiles on Wednesday killed 10 people, forced the shutdown of nuclear power plants, and cut water and electricity to many places. Matthew Bray reports.
70 strikes across Ukraine from Russian missiles on Wednesday caused an almost total blackout across the country as well as in neighbouring Moldova. Zelensky, addressing the United Nations Security Council on the latest damage to Ukraine's ability to get through the winter, said it was ridiculous that Russia was able to veto any resolutions given it was the one waging the war. The wartime leader said hospitals, schools, residential areas and transport all suffered in what he termed war crimes. Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, first said it was against council rules for Zelensky to appear by video, and then claimed infrastructure damage was caused by Ukrainian missiles that had been fired at Russian ones that fell into civilian areas. Kyiv was pounded Wednesday, with at least 5 people killed and 9 wounded. In this suburb, Vishorod, residential apartments were hit, rescue services doing their best to get people out and to some kind of safety. Rolling power outages have become the norm, and the energy infrastructure is being damaged faster than it can be repaired. In southern Ukraine, residents were expressing their anger over the bombing of their local hospital by Russia that killed a newborn baby overnight. The rocket strike left a small town hospital in the Zaporizhzhia region a crumbled mess of bricks. Power went off in northern Moldova too after Russian strikes on Ukraine. Deputy Prime Minister Andrei Spinu, who had reported a massive blackout, said power was restored later. Its grid is connected to Ukraine's. Power was also restored later in the Russian-backed region of Transnistria. In a separate development, the European Parliament's website was out of action for several hours Wednesday after suspected pro-Kremlin hackers carried out a denial-of-service attack. The Parliament's president, Roberto Metsola, said it was a response to lawmakers there designating Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. They say strikes on civilian infrastructure violate international law. The site was back up after 2.5 hours. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
There was yet another shooting incident in the U.S. A Walmart manager pulled out a handgun before a routine employee meeting and began firing wildly in a room of a Virginia store, killing 6 people. It was the United States' second high-profile mass shooting in 4 days after a gunman opened fire at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, killing 5 people. The shooter was dead when officers arrived, having apparently turned the gun on himself. This story from NBC.
Tragedy in Chesapeake, Virginia.
How many medics do we have left in the city right now?
Currently 6 medics available.
Go ahead and dispatch all of them.
911 receiving its first call to the Walmart Supercenter at 10:12 p.m. Officers arriving within 2 minutes.
We got a whole scene out here, brother. It's crazy out here right now. They everywhere.
The 31-year-old shooter, who police say worked at the store since 2010, came armed with a handgun and multiple magazines. One senior law enforcement official tells NBC News he was a disgruntled employee.
I literally was frozen. I just stood there. I literally could be dead right now. It didn't kick in until I looked at my coworker and she was bleeding out of her neck.
6 people were killed, ranging in age from 16 to 70. At least 4 others were wounded before the shooter turned the gun on himself.
The investigation's still ongoing, and we'll be processing that scene for days.
The most important thing we need to do is come around families and support them. It's unimaginable what they're dealing with today.
24-year-old Jalen Jones had been working at the Walmart for about a year. He's recovering at a nearby hospital.
She knew he was being shot. He made it to the front of the store, and then when he made it to the front of the store, he was shot again.
I have to live with that now.
28-year-old Jessie says it was just her 5th day on the job.
I saw a lot of bad things that happen to really good people, and I didn't understand it, and it didn't feel real.
She says she was in the break room when the shooter came in laughing and started firing.
He's got the gun pointed at me, and he looks at me, and he puts the gun up in the air, and all he says is, "Jesse, go home." I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't want to look back.
Do you know why he let you go, Jesse? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't.
So far, there's no word on motive, and it's unclear if the victims were targeted. Authorities today cordoned off this vehicle in the parking lot, saying it's a vehicle of interest.
It's heartbreaking.
Chesapeake, Virginia, Just the latest community left grappling with yet another senseless shooting.
It was just 2 days ago that I was contacting one of my colleagues at Colorado Springs, wishing her well and checking in to see how she was doing after she had just taken care of shooting victims. So it's very disheartening that now I'm in the same position with my colleagues from across the country checking in on me.
The UK Supreme Court has ruled that Scotland does not have the power to hold a new referendum on independence without Westminster's consent. Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said she was disappointed but respected the rule of law and will continue to fight for independence for Scotland. Tracy Furness has more.
Scottish independence supporters rallied in Edinburgh Wednesday evening against the British court's decision not to grant the country a new referendum on independence. Nicola Sturgeon, Scotland's First Minister, joined the rally and was in a fighting mood. Sturgeon said that Scotland's democratic right to choose its own future was at stake.
Now, the Westminster establishment may think it can block a referendum, but let me be clear, I am sure on your behalf today, no establishment, Westminster or otherwise, will ever silence the voice of the Scottish people.
Earlier in the day, Sturgeon said she would always be guided by a commitment to democracy and respect for the rule of law.
The route we take must be lawful and democratic for independence to be achieved. And as is becoming clearer by the day, achieving independence is not now just desirable, it is essential if Scotland is to escape the disaster of Brexit.
The semi-autonomous Scottish Government wants to hold a referendum next October with the question, should Scotland be an independent country? But the UK Government says the question was settled in a 2014 referendum that saw Scottish voters reject independence by a margin of 55% to 45%. Leader of the Scottish National Party, Ian Blackford, said during a House of Commons question time that democracy in this union is now at stake.
Democracy will not be denied, because whether Westminster likes it or not, last year the people of Scotland voted for a Scottish Parliament with a majority and the mandate to deliver an independence referendum.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Wednesday that he respected the decision by the UK's top court on Scotland's referendum vote, adding that the Scottish people wanted the government to focus on the major challenges ahead. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
And in sports, Japan celebrated their greatest day on the World Cup stage after their stunning 2-1 victory over mighty Germany on Wednesday. Both of Japan's goal scorers, Ritsu Doan and Takuma Asano, play for German clubs. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida today hailed the Samurai Blue, who fought back from 1-0 down at halftime to create history at the Qatar 2022 World Cup. I think the entire country was filled with excitement over the magnificent win, Kishida told reporters today. In a country where baseball is the #1 sport, Japanese fans hailed their team. That's the news. Thanks for watching, and happy Thanksgiving to those who are celebrating. Bye for now.